Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. Today we're taking on a topic that we've resisted for a while, but thank you to a commenter who very kindly reminded us that Mina Kumari is not just a tragedy queen. She is not just, as Pitu refers to her, Moaning Myrtle. She has more to her. And in fact, she has a handful of lighthearted films. And in fact, our commenter shared that that's how she first got to know Moaning Mina Kumari. And so we have felt encouraged to give some of those films a try. Also, after we watched Sahib Bibi or Ghulam, where she is so amazing, we're having a little bit of mixed feelings about not doing her in our Superstars series. So maybe we'll cycle back around. Who knows? But for today, we wanted to do something fun with some of Mina's lighthearted films. I have watched Miss Mary from 1957, and Pitu has watched Kohinoor from 1960, which I have already seen and think is super duper. Please tell us about Kohinoor, Pitu. Did it live up to your hopes?
I had a lot of fun with Kohinoor, and what I thought was so funny was that it's this royalty caper, and caper is the right word for it. It's just very lighthearted and cute, and it literally stars the tragedy queen Mina Kumari. And her co-star is the tragedy king Dilip Kumar. So I was like, whose idea was this? It turns out that this idea was actually Dilip Kumar's doctor's. So it seems that Dilip Kumar had been doing so many like sad movies that he was like at risk of sinking into a depression because, of course. And his doctor literally said to him that, like, for his like mental health or whatever, he should actually maybe focus on doing some lighthearted fare. So I very much appreciate this filmy doctor because that is precisely the kind of medical advice I would have given had I become a doctor, which thank God I'm not. And so here we have these two people that I always associate with Rona Dhona, and they're actually having a fun time. They are dressed in the most beautiful costumes, and they are both exceedingly cute looking. Cute is not a word I have ever used for Dilip Kumar in my life. So I'm quite shocked at how cute he was in this film. It turns out when he's not like being grumpy and crying and being drunk and all those sorts of things, and when he's actually having fun, he actually can be very cute and easy on the eye. And he has like a great sense of song and dance, and he has a great sense of rhythm. And he really seems to be enjoying himself in this caper. So I think his doctor's advice was very good. And Mina looks absolutely breathtaking in this film. Because my first exposure to Mina Kumari was through Pakiza, which, oh God, that movie it is terrible, and I will never watch it again. I never thought of Mina Kumari as being particularly like beautiful or aesthetic or easy to watch or like a fashion person or anything like that. And I was just kind of like about her. But when we saw Sahib Bir Gulam, and I was just absolutely transfixed and enchanted by this woman, especially in that song where she's getting ready for her husband, the Shringar song, Pia Eso Jiame Samai Gaye. And I was just this person like just staring at her like, who are you? I love you. So in this movie she wears these very like sequiny outfits, which I'm sure are not period appropriate or
It's
accurate.
this movie has a little bit of the we rummaged through the community theater costume closet to it, and I love it.
Right.
Not a complaint. Like there's something very make-believe dress up about this, but
It
it
is.
works, right?
It's very costume drama. Like she's wearing tiaras, she's wearing like weird jewelry, she's wearing outfits, literally what looks like a Georgette anarkali with sequins on it. And I was like,
We
that
found some sparkly things. Please put them on.
yeah, basically. And they were like, you look pretty in this. Why don't you wear it? And she's like, okay. And then Dilip Kumar's fashions are also very nice, and he looks very fit and very handsome and very believable as this sort of like Prince Charming person. Also, shout out to Jivan, who has the thinnest of pencil mustaches, and that mustache does a lot of heavy lifting. There was a lot of acting talent, acting prowess in his mustache,
Love
and
Jason. He's so fun.
his yes, and his uniform was very spiffy, and he had these hench dudes. There were like these four hench dudes who were also, various versions of handsome, and they all had these amazing outfits on with like the belt and the sash and all the things, and they're all like marching together down the corridor. And I was like, first of all, you do not scare me one bit, but also y'all are kind of ridiculous. So some of the dialogues that his hench dudes say, and I watched this movie on iTunes, so it had subtitles which I could not turn off, which normally annoys me because it's distracting. But I actually enjoyed the subtitles in this because at one point, Jeevan is like, "Why won't the princess talk to me? Why is she so grumpy?" And then this other hench dude says to him, "Sir, it is because," and by the way, I think his name is Zalim Khan, which very on the nose, like Zalim, really? Okay. And the hench dude is like, "Sir, she is a woman deeply in love. She requires the fragrance of flowers." And I was like, "You are correct, hench dude. I did not know you had the soul of a poet." So it's Khalil Gibran, hench dude over there. You know, so it's a lot of fun. It's not necessarily a plot that makes a lot of sense. Dilip Kumar is a prince. Mina Kumari is a princess. Jeevan is the bad guy, and then they have a king who is like very like sad and forlorn and doesn't understand evil when it's standing right under his nose in its sash and its pencil mustache. They have Leela Chitnis playing the mom. All she does is cry and be sad for her son. And after a lot of trials and tribulations and kidnappings and horse rides and whatnot, and lots of song and dance, the prince and the princess come together, and it's a happy ending. I will say I would love to live in a parallel universe where I have Dilip Kumar's life, because he's a prince who does absolutely no princing. He
Mm.
wears fun outfits and he sings and dances and he plays the sitar. And my dad was a founding member of the Muhammad Rafi fan club in Mumbai, something he was extremely proud of. And he also did like accounts for them and everything. And he was also a gigantic Dilip Kumar and Shami Kapoor fan, which I'm not sure how you can be a fan of both at the same time, but okay. And he once told me that one of the reasons that those two actors were his favorites is because, so my dad sang and he could play the tabla and the harmonium, and one of his pet peeves when watching movies was that an actor or an actress would be singing, like, say, a classical song sung by Mohammad Rafi or Lata Mangeshkar or whatever, and their vocal cords just didn't move, so they
Oh,
were just moving their lips,
yeah.
and you could tell they weren't singing, like there was no strain on their face, nothing. And I remember him telling me that he loves the song Madhuban Mein Radhika Nachere because Dilip Kumar really looks like he's singing, like if you pay attention to his throat and his vocal cords. And so that's one of the things he liked about Dilip Kumar and Shami Kapoor, that when they lip synced, it looked like they were truly mimicking
Mhm.
the singer. And Kohinoor is the movie that has that song in it.
Oh,
So
nice.
this time, when I actually watched the song, I was paying close attention to how Dilip Kumar's throat moved. And I was like, oh my God, that's true. He really looks like he's singing because he's making those micro movements on his
He
face
might
and his
actually be
voice.
singing, right? And this
He
just
could, yeah.
I mean,
And
that would be the way to do it because when you mouth words, it's not the same. It's just
right.
not even chin up, is it the same?
Because just those muscles are just not going to do that like involuntarily. And then there's also a song, which the song is forgettable, but it's like this Kumkum, who is a Tawayef. By the way, she's an amazing dancer.
Mhm.
And Dilip Kumar is playing the sitar. And again, I don't know if this man knew how to play the sitar. I certainly don't. But again, the rapt attention with which he pays attention to the instrument was again very fascinating to me. So my opinion of Dilip Kumar has suddenly increased a lot after watching this movie. And I think Mina Kumari was just hilarious and cute and bubbly and funny and all of the things. And I do wish that movies like this had been my entry point to both Mina Kumari and Dilip Kumar, rather than the weepies that I was first introduced to, because I do think that a lot of my anti-Mina sentiment comes from movies like Pakisa. So overall, for me, this was a successful experiment, and I do want to thank our subscriber very much, because part of the reason that you and I do this podcast is because we want to learn. We don't
Yeah.
just want to give our opinion, we also want to learn from the community, and I think that this was kind of like a step in the right direction for us. And so I take back Moaning Myrtle, and I have coined a new phrase, and that is Merry Meena.
Nice. Nice.
So I recommend this movie if people want to get to know Merry Meena, and also Dapper Dilip Kumar, and also Pencil Mustache Jeevan. It's a fun movie. It's not going to change your life, but you will enjoy it, and you will enjoy the costumes especially, and the songs. So yeah.
Nice. Nice.
What were your thoughts on Kohinoor when you saw it?
I just remember thinking it was really fun. I have written about it on my blog. If people want to see some more screen grabs, I have quite a few in there because I was very taken by this kind of swashbuckly comedy, historic, fake pretend history. I love it. I love it. Um, this was quite early in the movies I had seen of either of those people. So to me,
Mm,
it's in my foundational
mm.
films for them. But yeah, I just remember thinking he in particular is tons of fun in it.
Yes.
But if you can see the thumbnail that we're going to use for this episode, it's Mina with a curl loose on her forehead, and you can tell she's kind of like trying to blow it out of her face, like uh,
Yeah.
that image has stayed with me. I put it in my blog post way back in the day, but I that's an image I think of when I think of her. Like I find them both luminous and really fun in this film.
Yeah. It's just very kind of impish, right? And it reminds me a little bit of like Nargis, reminds me a little bit of Sri Devi as well, just that sort of like impishness that she has in her. Yeah. And then the movie you picked was Miss Mary, you said?
Miss Mary, yeah, and I went for it because I saw it in a quick list of some of her lighthearted films. I had heard of it before and I couldn't remember why. And then when I went to go look for it to watch it, I remembered, oh, the wonderful Tommy Dan YouTube channel
Mm.
has put this up with English subtitles. So if you would like to watch this film and you need subtitles, this is a good place to do it. Um, so I thought, yeah, I'll give that a try. I did not really enjoy this
Mm.
film. You know how every now and again you get, for me, it's always a kale salad, and you eat and you eat and you eat, and it never seems to get any smaller.
Right. Yes. It
It,
just expands.
it's specifically a kale thing to me, and I like raw kale, but I don't necessarily, if you get a salad this big, you don't really probably want this. And this movie, like, no matter how long I watched it, it always seemed like there was still over half of it left. I don't know what was happening. Like, time seemed to be going backwards for me or something. So I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it or if it wasn't as funny as I had thought it was going to
Mm.
be. Maybe it's a subtitling issue. Like, I can't name you anything specific about it that wasn't working for me, really. I just was not along for the ride with this one.
Mm.
So the plot is so Mina and Gemini Gamesan, who for those who don't know is Rekha's dad, and boy, can you see it in the face.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen him in a film before.
I
So
have not either.
I've known about her dad being an actor, of course, but I didn't, and I knew his name, but I had never seen him, I don't think. So it's very obvious. And maybe, once if you know it, you can look for it harder, but I think it's quite obvious, actually.
Is it Kapoor genetic supremacy levels of obvious?
Not quite, I would say, not quite, but
Okay.
it's pretty similar. But then when I looked up a picture of her mother, I was like, yeah, she looks a lot like her mom too. So,
Okay.
um, but there's something about the sort of like shape of the eyes and everything with him that I
Hmm.
like the upper lip to me that seemed very Reika. You
Okay.
are of course very primed to like Reika related things in this.
Yes.
So maybe I was, and I know most of his films are not in Hindi, but
Mhm.
it seemed to me he was doing Hindi very beautifully. Like I didn't find him harder to understand for the amount that I can understand than anyone else. So he and Mina Kumari are both people who have found themselves out of work unexpectedly because an employer is moving away, and they kind of meet at a bus stop, and he comes up with this idea that because there is a school that is trying to hire a husband-wife pair to be teachers, and so they agree that they will pretend to be married so they can take these jobs.
Okay.
Uh, Also, the people who run the school are, especially the wife of the husband-wife pair, are very devoted to the memory of their tiny daughter who disappeared when she was 4 years old, and they've been looking for her ever since. And they took the extremely brilliant and not at all silly idea to hire Kishore Kumar as the detective, Hindustan ka number one jasus, as he says many times, to be the detective to try to find their daughter. And he has,
This sales pitch
I,
is working on me.
yeah, yeah. So before we hit record, you had asked me who the hero of this movie was.
Yeah.
And I was like, because like technically, I guess it's Gemini Gamithan, but honestly, it's Kishore Kumar
Hmm.
because so Mina is a music teacher in this, so that's an excuse for quite a few songs. And the school owner's daughter, or like the school principal's daughter, is a music student, and so you see her dancing quite a bit. She is played by Jamuna, who is an actress I don't know, but I thought she was fun. And then Kishore Kumar has a sidekick who's played by Maruti, who's also
Mm.
those, comedy uncle kind of guys. I thought they were pretty funny. This is Kishore Kumar without a mustache, which is an unusual thing in my experience so far, but he has a song. There's this long sequence where Mina Kumari is trying to teach him how to sing. So whenever Kishore Kumar has to pretend he can't sing or isn't musical, it's hilarious because he's obviously an incredibly musical person in addition to
Yeah.
an amazing singer. So watching him goof around with this is actually very funny, I thought. And then he has this long song about I can't dance and I can't play an instrument or something like, or can't sing and I can't play an instrument. He's great. You could watch it just for that, but also of course you could just watch that song. And I would highly
Right.
recommend you do watch that song, which is called, oh yeah, Gana na Aya, Bajana na Aya. Um,
Okay.
Very funny. Thumbs up. And of course, as you can imagine, not only does our fake couple fall in love in a romance
Of
novel
course.
that we all know, but also it is discovered who is whose daughter and whatever. There is a locket and there is a birthmark. We have both of these
Nice.
things to um, identify her. So you could also kind of start this movie like halfway through and
Mm.
be sufficed, I think, with the plot summary I've given you and just leave it, watch in. And like, if you want to see some of it, you should. I didn't feel that if Mina was doing a lot of things that were supposed to be comedic, I wasn't understanding that. I mean,
Mm.
she was funny. She was like kind of lightly amusing, but the comedy to me was all pretty much with Kishore Kumar, and also Om Prakash is here as well. So you've got these two hardcore comedy guys plus Maruti, right? So like
Right.
even Gemini Gamasan, I thought had more of the comedy, and then the principal's daughter, was kind of funny. So the comedy is pretty spread around, I would say. And to me, Mina wasn't really delivering in that way. But again, that might just be me or my lack of Hindi or something. She did make some very funny facial expressions, but I kept thinking of Kohinoor and her like blowing her hair out of her face.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting anything like that. She does make some funny faces, though. There's a lot of scenes where the principal or his wife will ask the married couple to do something and they like go to the other side of the room to confer among themselves because of course they're not actually a married couple.
Right.
Do a lot of that with just facial expressions. So he'll be like raise his eyebrows and she goes or like
Okay.
faces. So I I don't want to tell people not to watch this film, but if you do watch it or you have watched it and you also kind of find it like I would be interested in that. Apologies for the beep that just went on my computer. Because I was not blown away by this, but and I can't even tell you it was exactly a pleasant experience because I kept looking at my watch like,
Mm.
I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Isn't this over yet? I've been watching this for 5 hours. Obviously, it's a 2.5 hour movie. So I think it could have been shorter. I do think it could have been edited up, but sometimes comedy and translation is really hard, or
Hmm.
maybe I'm just not in the right brain space for this because I was excited about this
Yeah.
for the podcast. I do like Mina Kumari in the things I've seen her in, especially when we rewatched Sahib Bibi and Gulam or Gulam. I like that. She's so good in that. So
So
good.
amazing.
And I need to see some more of her big hits. But so if listeners have recommendations for particular examples from her more comic or more lighthearted turns, I'd love to know. So I've seen this one, I've seen Kohinoor, and I've seen Memsab, which I watched for our Shami for a
Hmm.
episode at some point, I think in our Kapoor series. And that's the one where she has puppies and sings a happy and has a puppy birthday party and sings to the puppies. And I honestly think that might be the peak of all cinema ever, which is maybe why it didn't live up because it didn't have any puppies.
Right.
But yeah, I'd like
I
to watch
mean, it's kind of funny because like when you explain the plot to me, like the couple that's just having like a sham marriage because they need like money or whatever, that inherently already sounds funny. And also the idea of Kishore Kumar being like a detective who needs to, I mean, that alone is a
he does
very,
disguises. I think there's a scene where he has like a magnifying glass, if I remember right. Yeah, you could fast forward this just to watch his bits, I think,
yeah.
if you wanted to.
But so I'm curious about where do you think it went wrong? Because at least on the surface of it, it sounds like it has a lot of potential.
Yeah,
And it has an amazing star cast. So I'm
it
kind of
has
like,
an
what
amazing star
happened?
cast, and I found the music very pleasant.
Okay.
I just discovered that this director, L.V. Prasad, who is primarily, I believe, a Telugu director, was part of Prithvi Theaters. Like, love these worlds and worked with Raj Kapoor and others.
Okay.
This is obviously someone connected to the Hindi film industry as well as, other
Yeah.
industries. This movie was made in other languages as well. Um, so it was originally a 30s Bengali film and then became a Telugu and Tamil film in 1955, and then he remade it in 1957 in Hindi, and like, so it's around. Of course, now I'm like, oh, I want to see the Bengali 31s.
Hmm.
Of course, I do. Yeah, I couldn't tell you where I think it went wrong. It just really felt long, but I'm very willing to blame that on me and my either my mood or my needing to rely on subtitles for something that just can't be captured very well that way. But I
I
do
mean,
hope someone who's listening has seen it and can share their thoughts of it.
I will say that like of some of the older movies that we watch, like 50s and stuff like that, or 60s, I actually find comedy the hardest
Mhm.
one to watch because I feel like it's the one genre that doesn't always age well. Whereas like if you watch like a drama, I mean thrillers don't always age well either unless they're really
Yeah.
well done. But like if like a solid family drama or like a solid romance will still work usually because I guess like those emotions are more universal, whereas I think comedy just tends to be so like it's like reflective of the ethos, it's reflective like social mores and things like that. It's more fluid to me. I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of comedies from like really old ones where everyone talks about how hysterical they are, and I find myself just completely stony faced throughout because I'm like, this is just not landing. And I think sometimes also, for me at least, I want my comedy to be zippy. I wanted to move along real fast. And sometimes the pacing with some of those things is just too slow. And that slower pacing and the slower dialogue delivery works in dramas because it just
Mhm.
adds to the atmosphere, and it often
Mhm.
works in like psychological thrillers or horror movies and stuff. But I think in comedy sometimes it just doesn't translate. Like there's a really old TV show. It's from the 80s. It's called Ye Jo Hai Zindagi. It had Sarup Sampath in it, and it had Shafi Namdar in it, and Rajiv Bedi in it. And I remember when I was little, I was obsessed with it. So we used to watch Ye Jo Hai Zindagi on cassettes that we would get from grocery store uncle in Nigeria, and I loved it. And I would sometimes even watch episodes completely out of order because it was a sitcom, so it didn't really matter. Shafi Namdar and Sarup Sampath were spouses, and then Rakesh Bedi was her younger brother, and it was just these like, and he lives with them, and it was just like these cute hijinks. It was just like adorable sitcom. And many years later I actually found um some link, like it was on Daily Motion or YouTube or something. Someone had uploaded episodes and I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna watch Ye Jo Hai Zindagi.
Oh,
Girl, I could not get through a single episode. I was like, this is so slow. And I kept wanting to forward. And so it was so funny because my impression of it as a child was like, this is like the peak of comedy. This is hilarious. And then as an adult, I was like, wow, this is slow and terrible. And I couldn't even finish like I think I finished the first episode, but it was very so I don't think it's you. I just think that comedy is one of those things that doesn't always age well, which
yeah.
is why when you watch things like Chalti Ka Naam Gaadi and Half Ticket and they're still funny, it really is a testament to how well written they are.
I do want to point out something that I just read on Wikipedia, and
Mm.
which is that uh, there was a book in 2015 by Deepa Galot, who's a national award-winning film critic, called Take Two: 50 Films That Deserve a New Audience. And she writes about this film. I have that book. I fell asleep really early last night, so I didn't read it. Like I even thought to myself, when because it's on my nightstand. It's been on my nightstand maybe since 2015 when it came out. I was gonna look up the entry on this film to see if that helped me any, and I fell asleep, and I apologize. But if you have that book, or dig it out, and I'm gonna dig it out after recording this. But she talks about it, and the quote on Wikipedia is that like is basically think about how shocking it might have been in 1957 to have a film about an unmarried couple living together,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
not with any either of their parents. Like the
Mm-hmm.
people who run the school are kind of their parents' age, but like anything could be happening. I mean, it doesn't,
Right.
but it could be,
Yeah.
right? And like
Yeah.
they are never, they are only kind of found out when they, when it, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not even sure if they ever admit it at the very, very end. They maybe do, because also there's the drama of her being identified by her birth parents and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, so there's no big deal made of it at all, which is,
Yeah.
and I had not even thought about that while I was watching this. Like I opened Wikipedia halfway through to check who some of the cast were, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How did that not occur to me? But
What
like,
about Izzat?
right, it's so not a big deal that I didn't
Yeah.
even notice it. Again, maybe that means I was just really tired and not in the mood. I don't know. Like,
Right.
yeah, so I hope that people have seen this and will talk to me about it, or
Mm.
if it sounds like it does to Pitu, if it sounds good to you based on the plot and the cast. And I did think the songs were pretty lovely. I have to say, there's one where Mina is, when she realizes she's falling in love with her fake husband, she's out by a pond and there's like a lotus on the pond, and you see the reflection of the
Oh,
moon. It's all very pretty.
yeah.
It's of course black and white, and that's really lovely. So you could do definitely far worse than this film. And but if you have any keys to its greatness that you can share with me, please do.
Hmm. So, like you, when I was looking up a list of like Mina Kumari movies that are like lighthearted or whatever, that list was very short. There wasn't a ton to pick from.
So we
And
have Azad is one, which I have not seen, and
I'm
Sharat
not,
is the other one that came up other than the two that we're talking about.
so
Um,
not a ton. And there's also a movie called Yahudi or like Yahudi Ki Ladki or something, but I can't tell. Like, I feel like that's a drama. I don't think that's a comedy
that also
either.
Philip Kumar.
Yeah, I think it also has Dilip Kumar,
I
but
isn't
it's like
that
a historical.
it's set in ancient Rome, right?
Yeah.
I've heard
And it's a
I have a
historical.
copy of that somewhere and I haven't seen it yet. I It's kind of hard to imagine that that name set in ancient Rome is going to be a comedy, but
Exactly.
you
I
never
mean,
know.
I mean, although to be fair, Sikandar was hella funny in some scenes, especially when
It's
Prithviraj was
so funny.
stomping around with great glee. Yeah, so there's not a lot to pick from, and
Mhm.
it does seem like if you want to love Meena Kumari, or if you do love Meena Kumari, you kind of have to like
Girl,
buy
Yehudi is
into.
directed by Bimal Roy.
Oh
That's
no,
not gonna be a comedy.
no one is going to be cracking a smile in this entire movie. If they're cracking a smile, someone's probably cracking a whip and making them smile.
Right, it's the villain.
Right? Yeah, it's the villain
Oh,
who's
and
going to be
Sohrab Modi
smirking.
is in it. Like this is Nazir Hussain is in it. Like this is
Oh yeah, no, this is a
I mean, given
historical
how
drama.
you and I like ancient Rome, maybe we should watch it anyway.
Yeah, we might, but it would not be classified under the Merry Meena category, which is a very very tiny subcategory.
It wouldn't.
So it really does seem like if you are a Meena fan, you really do have to buy into Meena of high drama,
Well,
and
there must be
you
some
know,
things in between, right? It's not like comedy and mega weepy tragedy are the only two categories of film. There's sort of a more straightforward, like less dramatic drama or less melodramatic drama.
I haven't seen them if they exist because all the ones I know. So, okay, I've seen Pakiza. I've seen obviously Sahibi Galam. I've seen Dilap Nar Preet Parai, which is also very VP, and it I think also has Rajkumar in it, which he's very annoying in that film. I've seen Sharda, which is actually a very good movie, and I do recommend. It's got a really amazing plot, and but it's not a happy movie. So, I mean, most of the films of hers that I've seen, they very much strongly fall into the very melodramatic and sad
What
category.
about Paranita? That's not
So,
really
I
a
haven't seen that yet.
okay, but that seems to me to be a more kind of down the middle
Yeah.
sort of film. Wow, 4 Best Actress awards, Filmfare.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
And there was a year where she was nominated in like three categories at the same time or something.
Yeah, she got all the 10th Filmfare Awards in 1963. She got all 3 Best Actress nominations.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Wow. So whatever she was doing, people loved it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting
They
too.
same as Dilip Kumar, right? Like
Right.
whatever he was doing, people were definitely loving it. Same like Guru Dutt. Like I'm not a Guru Dutt fan person, but whatever he's doing, like people who love his movies really love his movies, and they will not take any, brickbats from the rest of us. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit. How okay, who do you think is is Meena Kumari's target audience? Because I don't really think it's us, even when we do enjoy a movie of hers like Sai Bibi or Gulam. And do you think that perhaps whatever her brand image is perhaps unappealing today? Because sure, at that time she was kind of ruling the roost and people loved her, and she's widely considered one of the most talented actresses ever. But is that an era that just you can't recreate that anymore because people are just kind of over the tragic people?
Well, I have two thoughts. One is she died at age 38 from cirrhosis. Like her
Yeah.
life is very sad. So had that not happened, that helps, that reinforces this kind of thing, right? So like when we
Hmm.
refer to her, I mean, she's almost exclusively referred to as the tragedy queen, right? It's not like we love, she's really good, especially at tragedies. That's not what I hear. It's tragedy queen.
Yeah.
So had that not happened, maybe we would, uh, her persona would be a little more diverse than it seems to be. Now, I'm not talking about among people who are active, well educated about her films, fans of hers, because obviously they know the diversity better than we do. But like
Hmm.
that's her vibe. That's the lane that she has been relegated to. So
Yeah.
I want to say that. Um, Although we also say Dilip Kumar, tragedy king, and he lived a long life and made all sorts of kinds of movies and wasn't a particularly tragic figure as far as
No, his life was actually pretty happy and
also,
successful.
he also gets referred to as sort of like the big three, the biggest three movie stars in Hindi cinema ever and things like that.
Hmm.
He kind of has some other appellations as well. Um, so there's that. I am curious about, and I don't know Indian history well enough. So, by the 70s, people need the angry young man. What's going on circa 1960, slightly before and somewhat after, where
Hmm.
the kind of perhaps catharsis projected this need to have this kind of emotional outlet. What's going on that made this something that people wanted or needed? And I don't know
Yeah.
the answer to that, but I feel like that's probably
One of the keys
but
to
this,
it.
like this flavor of escapism in cinema, and I'm not being
Mm.
specific about Hindi cinema, like a lot of cinema can be escapist, right? And we think about the example in my background that always gets brought up is the movie musicals of the 1930s that Hollywood
Mm.
made that were so escapist during the Great Depression, but to me they still work beautifully today. Like I would watch a Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers movie any moment of any day. Hand it to me,
Hmm.
I will love it. So what, yeah, so what's going on that this feels good? Is there something about her being a woman who's identified with these things that's really useful to people at the time? Like, I don't know.
So this might sound tangential, but I once read a really fascinating article in the Juggernaut where literally the headline captured me. It said, "Why South Asian Moms Love Lady Diana."
Ah,
And I love Lady Diana. So I was like, I'm going to read this article. And I
yeah.
read it. And it was so mind blowing to me because basically what it said is if you look at South Asian moms of a prior generation, like women who are basically now in their like 60s or 70s or even 80s, right? The reason they loved Princess Diana was because she was a symbol of a beautiful, naive, innocent young girl who gets married into an evil sasural, and her husband does
Ah,
not appreciate her and takes advantage of her naivete and innocence. And she does her duty. She is the good wife. She produces the heir and the spare to the throne. She does everything that is demanded of her, and yet she's never good enough and she's discarded, and her value is never seen by anyone else. Hence, the people's princess, right? Like what her sasural and her husband could not appreciate. And also, she never got any kind of support from her Maika, right? Like the Spencers. But now look at all these people who love her, and there's almost this relatability of like, if this can happen to Princess Diana, who is this beautiful, tall, Caucasian, blonde woman with tons of money, then what is our heartbreak? Then we've been treated in the same way. But here's this icon that is in the same boat as us. And so you can commiserate in that sadness. And also, there is a little bit of a catharsis. And okay, her sasural didn't appreciate her. Her husband turned out to be a jerk. But look, the people love her. And look, I'm loved by my children and I am loved by these other people, right? So Princess Diana to those women is not just a fashion icon or like a pretty lady, or like to me, I love Princess Diana for the fact that she destigmatized things like, the HIV virus and like the work she did for like landmines. Like I think of her as someone who was a social reformer and used her fame for good. But that's not the angle that those women care about. They care about, here's this tortured person who didn't deserve the tyag, she did all this tyag, right, and all this balidan. And so that's that angle. I feel like Mina Kumari is also fulfilling that same role for these women. Not just Mina Kumari, but if you look at some of the most famous movies that Nutan has done, I mean, Nutan did some more lighthearted movies too, but Sujata, Bandini, again, Bimal Roy here, right? Again, we're talking about a young woman who in Sujata, because she's a lower caste woman, she can't marry Sunil Dutt, who is upper caste. Or, her story in Bandini, where she's literally imprisoned, the
Oh.
way that so many women feel imprisoned in their sasural, right? So I just feel like for that generation, they related to this beautiful young heroine on screen who's crying copious tears because nobody seems to appreciate her value. But also in many of these movies, not in Pakiza, but in many of these movies, towards the end, she does get a happy ending. And
Mm.
so maybe there's that hope, like, okay, well, one day my husband will understand my value. One day my in-laws will treat me better, right? So I think there's definitely like a deep psychological thing there. And I think when you look at younger generations, like for me, watching women cry on screen is very triggering. I don't like it. It makes me anxious and nervous. My brand of cinema is more the fiery heroine who takes charge and either fights back, literally fights back, or she takes revenge. Like I love Kun Bhari Mang because to me that's very cathartic. She doesn't take shit from nobody, right? Or if I watch Smita Patil movies like Mirch Masala, she literally throws the spice in his face. Or if I watch Madhuri Dixit and Anjam, where she coldly
Yeah.
calculates her revenge and takes that revenge. To me, that heroine is more appealing because bad things happen to her, because bad things happen to everyone, but she doesn't allow herself to be a victim and she fights back. But when I see a movie where a woman is just crying for hours, it's really triggering for me because I'm like, well, why won't you do something? Like I don't know if you've seen the Lapnar Preet Parai, but there is a song where she's literally in a rowboat. I don't know why she's in a rowboat, but Meena Kumari is in a rowboat in a white sari. And it's a very famous song, Ajeeb Dastan Hai Ye, Kahan Shuru Kahan Khatam. I think she's at Rajkumar's engagement party
Mm.
because he's basically like dumped her and she's really sad. So it actually qualifies as like a party song. But it's very sad and she's washing her dirty linen in public and she's talking about how heartbroken she is. But she's also like, in a backhanded way, congratulating him for his happiness, which of course she will never get. So it's just very like multi-layered, but also like guilting him, and it's complicated. But when I watch that song, I'm always like, well, instead of just crying in the rowboat, why don't you take that oar and hit him over the head? And also, you're a beautiful woman. Go flirt with all the handsome men over there and make stupid Rajkumar jealous. I
Yeah.
would respect you more if you did that. Instead, I'm expected to feel sad for you while you cry. So I think the reason that some of these like tragedy queen movies don't work for me personally and my generation is that the lesson I learned was that even if people try to treat you badly because you're like you're a woman or you're a minority or any reason, right? Like bullying happens even in workplaces, right? Like for me, the lesson is don't take crap from anyone, fight back. But I think what these movies say is if you just take it and don't complain and you continue to be a decent person, eventually you will be rewarded for it in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like that's also emphasized by religion.
Mm.
The idea of like always being the better person, turning the other cheek. Like both Hinduism as well as Christianity teach you that the meek shall inherit the earth, and don't stoop to their level and you will get your just rewards. And I'm kind of like, I'm not sure that's a lesson I buy. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me what you're saying. I feel like to have any kind of theory about her more, I'm gonna have to see more of her films, right?
Yeah. And we do have Parinita on our horizon, on our near horizon. We're going to watch the four Parinita as well. Divvy that homework up. But I will definitely be watching the Jitendra one, let me tell you. And I will be watching the Meena Kumari one.
It blows the mind.
Yeah.
There's a
Um,
part
I
of
know that your favorite black and white actress, I don't know if she's your favorite actress of all time, but I know that your favorite actress, retro actress, is Suchitra Sen.
it.
So is Suchitra Sen also kind of in that
No,
mold of bad things happen, but she fights back?
I would say yes,
Okay.
based on what I've seen. Yeah. Um, I'd have to look at my list of what I've seen, but off the top of my head, I don't remember anyone really being able to put her, no one puts her in a corner.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, there is a very famous film where she is an alcoholic.
Okay.
That, kind of changes things a little bit, but
Mm,
that one's not a tragedy either. It ends in a different way, but um, yeah, I think on the ones I've seen, I would have to say my impression is that she's a little more fiery and like is not gonna she takes decisions certainly, which
mm,
automatically makes something not a tragedy or
right.
anything. But I think yeah, I think she's yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I didn't actually know who you were gonna say when you started that sentence. I was like, is she gonna say Wahida? Is she gonna who's she gonna say? But I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, because Wahida is my favorite actress, and
Right. Oh
Wahida,
God. All these women are so amazing.
I love them so much.
There's
I
so
know I love
many
them
to
so much.
yeah.
But like Wahida is very much that actress that even though she's from that era, and most of her best films, I would say, except for Guide, are from that black and white era. Wahida don't take shit from no one, which I love about Wahida. Every time I watch a Wahida movie and someone
Oh,
tries to like,
well, she did in the Wuthering Heights that I watched.
oh right, I have steadfastly avoided that movie.
Don't watch that movie, anybody. But I think especially if
She's
we're talking
Kathy
about people who did
Turner.
make a fair number of films, it's gonna happen somewhere.
Right.
So the ones we've seen or that we favor the most or remember the most may not be representative.
Right.
And unless you watch them all, it's kind of hard to say. Because I do feel like almost any of these people that we've chosen to study a little bit, there's a curveball. There's a
Hmm.
curveball in everybody's filmography, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's fun to be talking about this particular set of curveballs for Mina Kumari because I
Yeah.
think she is unfairly, it's too flat. This
Mm.
this name for her is too flat.
Yeah.
And it's
I
not
also,
like tragedy queen means that's all she ever did, but I feel like now maybe it's what people loved the most, but like
mm,
it over it's not paying homage to her full range of work. But I guess no nickname really does, so that's not
yeah.
to her, I suppose.
I wonder also, like, two things. Like, number one, back then, I don't know if actors really necessarily thought about diversifying. And, like nowadays we talk about how actors steadfastly want to avoid being typecast.
Mhm.
And that's like a decision that they make, and they intentionally choose movies that are like a little bit opposite to what their image is. And I don't know if back then anyone was really necessarily thinking about it and being like, hey, I want to break out of this mold or whatever. So number one, was she just being typecast? And also, did directors or producers or writers, when they wrote a story or they heard of a story that they knew was going to be like very dramatic and very tragic, they were like, well, of course we're going to cast Mina Kumari. Like, who else would we cast? And so maybe just those projects kept coming her way. And conversely, I wonder if someone actually had like a more lighthearted role where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to give that to Madhubala, or oh, we have this really like character, we're going to offer that to Nargis. So I wonder if it was also a matter of like decisions made in closed offices where they were just kind of like, yeah, that's not a Mina role, we're not going to offer that to her. You know what I mean?
I had not, I mean, I knew she had been a child actor. She started at
Hmm.
age 4.
Yeah, she was the breadwinner of her family.
She's in a movie called Leatherface.
I know.
That's unexpected to me. So like oh God, these pictures, the picture of her on Wikipedia as a child, like so
I
cute.
know.
She's so cute. So really she's done so many films. So many films, but the Wikipedia entry for what it's worth groups her sort of tragedy queen movies being from 1957 to 1961, which is not a terribly long,
Hmm.
but then I don't know, it's not that they're saying no other films were tragic, but um yeah, it's
She
really
was,
a lot going on in this short time span.
yeah, well, also her marriage to Kamal Amrohi was
Yeah.
very much said, like, they very much said that she was a victim of domestic violence.
Mm.
So he does not seem to have been a particularly good husband. Like, the Wikipedia entry also has stories from the guy whose name I forgot, starts with a B. Kamal Amrohi hired him to kind of like hang around with her and just kind of like tail her all the time. He would even be in the makeup room with her. And that guy very much also, said that Kamal Amrohi was very like abusive towards her. So it doesn't seem like she had a happy marriage. Doesn't seem like she had a happy childhood, because like Sri Devi and Rekha, um, and perhaps Neeta saying, she does talk about how she wanted to go to school. She didn't want to act,
Mm.
but she just didn't have that option, and she had to be the breadwinner. And so it doesn't seem like her childhood was that great, doesn't seem like her marriage was that great. And then of course there was the whole alcohol aspect, and then she died young. So the tragedy queen mythos, I think, does have a lot to do also with like her personal life, which I'm sure at that time the audience was aware of.
And that she's a poet, like that adds to
Yeah.
the drama.
Hmm. Yeah. So if you had to pick an ice cream flavor for Mina, which one would you?
Oh, oh. Well, for these lighthearted films,
Mm.
like I would do something maybe like a raspberry sherbet that's like
Okay.
art and bright and like ooh, little zippy, you know?
Right. Okay.
Especially for Kohinoor, which is my favorite of these that I've seen. Although
Yeah.
Puppy Song and Mem Sahib, like I cannot emphasize enough how much you should watch the puppy birthday song.
We should put that link in our YouTube description.
I will try
People
to.
need to see the puppy birthday song.
If you didn't watch it last year when we talked about it first, you got to watch it. Like put this down, go watch it, or and just save it because every time more bad news comes out, you can be like, well, at least there's a puppy birthday song in 50s Hindi cinema. At least.
What ice cream would I pick for her? I feel like I would pick tender coconut.
Mm.
Tender coconut, when I was growing up, was a seasonal flavor at Natural Ice Cream in Mumbai, which is my favorite ice cream chain of all time. And tender coconut, at least back then, you could only get during a certain time, just like lychee. Now I don't know if it's a year-round thing, but it was very like coconutty, and it had like pieces of coconut in it, and there was like, it's just like a soft tropical flavor, and just something about her gives off that vibe to me. That also counts for her tragedy movies as well, like Sahibi Bigger Gulam and this
Tender.
one as well. She just gives me like a tender coconut vibe, and I think some of it is also that she's so tender all the time, like, and yeah, so I would classify her as tender coconut. um okay, do you think we are done talking about Mina? Because
I
I
think
have some things I need to say.
I think we are done. And listeners, if you have not listened to our episode on films about foreigners in India, this discussion that Pitu is about to launch into relates to that episode. So you could pause and go listen to that and then come back. But also, this, if we're going to talk about what I think you're going to talk about, this is a standalone topic that is timeless, that spans many movies. It is an important conversation for the ages for anyone who likes movies. So go for it.
Okay, so I watched The Bengali Night because I had not seen this movie ever. And then in our last episode, you were talking about it. And as you know, I do very much adore Hugh Grant's movies. And I do love Supriya Pathak and I love Shabana Azmi. And I was like, okay, what is going on? This cast is amazing. I have to see it. So after we finished recording, I actually watched it on YouTube. The print wasn't great, but that's fine. Okay, first observation, Hugh Grant, sir. How dare you with that absolutely gorgeous hair that you have? That is not even hair, that is Zulfe. Um, Beautiful.
Street legal.
It's not legal. And you know what? If he's working in India at that time on a work visa, he should be deported because that is just not legal. It has volume. It has like some sort of gravity defying thing happening. It's like just these loose, like beachy waves. And it's not right.
Insane. It's insane.
It's insane. You can't do that to people. um Also, he wears these like linen shirts, like just these loose linen shirts, and he just looks very handsome for some reason. And again, I'm like, how dare you? I do not approve. And then Supriya Pathak is so pretty in this movie. She has these big, like gigantic eyes, which first of all, how is that anatomically possible? And every time they look at each other and they just like swoon at each other, I had a big smile on my face. And this movie is so silly. And this romance is so silly. And these
Right?
characters.
Not, come on.
These characters are so silly.
Yes.
Nothing about these people makes sense. Nothing about the script makes sense to me. And yet, I was very like joyous when I saw them. And Supriya's character is so funny because she's such a teenager. Like some of the things she says, I'm like, girl, please stop. But at the same time, I can't help but be enchanted by her. And also Shabana Azmi, oh my god, she comes on the screen, she has this like tall swan like neck, and she's wearing a crisp starched sari, and her hair is in a bun, and she has like a big bindi, and she just looks, and I'm just like, I love you, I could look at you forever. And I was just like, how is Hugh Grant not falling in love with this woman also? Because I would.
I, in watching this movie again, I really wished there had been more time with her with Sumitra Chatterjee because that's kind of an insane pairing of
Yeah.
like these powerhouse performers. Like, I don't feel like they even really have a scene, they don't have a scene just the two of them, right?
Not at all. And also,
Yeah.
like, he was completely wasted in this film, by the
Yeah.
way. Like, anyone could have done that role. He
Yeah.
just shows up, he says a line, and then he leaves. And
Well,
I'm kind of like, you cast such a great actor for this? Like, okay,
France loves Sumitra Chatterjee. He's won their like National
okay.
Letters Award and stuff. So like they love him, understandably. Like no complaint from me.
Yeah.
I think that's probably part of it is that French people really love him, so they cast.
It's kind of like how the Italians love Kabir Bedi. They want
But
him
they
in everything.
have a movie with Bengali in the title and not have him in the movie, and like he's too old to be the male lead. So
Right.
and he does do patrician well, but yeah,
Mm.
that could have been anybody, basically.
Yeah, and I'm also like, what convinced him to do this movie? Like, what's in it for him as an actor? It's he just shows up and says a line and disappears.
Yeah, he doesn't do a ton of international films, I don't think. I would wonder if it was the fact that it's an English role. I'm not, like I said, I'm not aware of him doing many more English films. I would love to be wrong about that. Please someone tell me if I'm wrong about that. But that's,
Yeah.
I probably he could show up for a day or two and get paychecks. So
Yeah. Yeah. Same for Shamana Azmi. I mean, I loved seeing her. She was amazing. But also every time I was kind of like, you didn't kind of need to cast her in this, but like I'm happy you did. Like
when
I'm
she
not
starts
complaining.
questioning Supriya, aren't you like, oh no, oh no, oh
Yeah.
no? Oh,
Especially because their vibe is so different. Like Shabana looks like a person just in general, but also specifically in this movie that like you can't fool her. And if you lie to her, she's gonna see through your lies. And Supriya is just so like silly and young and exactly that you're just like, oh God, oh God. Um, Also, what was that scene? Like, I did not understand this one scene in the movie where does Shabana Azmi do some sort of like black magic on her or something like that on the terrace? Like she draws a thing.
yeah, I didn't fully understand some of it.
I didn't get it.
Did you? So, what was your take on what happens to Supriya at the end? Like after Hugh Grant's come back to Calcutta,
Yeah.
what's your take on what happened? Again, spoilers, everybody.
I think she just like marries whatever some guy that they have picked for her, and then she's just kind of like sad about it for a while, but then eventually she like, makes her peace with it or something. I don't see her character as being someone who is particularly heartbroken over Hugh Grant for like too long. And I also wonder about that potential supernatural angle of whatever Shabana Azmi was doing
What did
because in
what did her father do to her though at the end?
apparently she's thrashed by someone, but I'm not sure who thrashed him because wasn't her father sick? So I don't think he
Was
could have.
but then he got better because remember he's the one who kicks Hugh Grant out actually.
Yeah. And he writes the letter too to Hugh Grant where he's like, I'm getting rid of you, whatever. And then the little girl's character was also a little bit odd where she was like very sad about him leaving and whatnot. So I mean, I feel like in the long run, these characters are supposed to be like, they'll be okay. Like,
Mhm.
yes, they're very upset right now. They're very hurt or whatever right now. But just as fast as their romance happen, it'll fizzle out and it'll be fine. The only thing really in this movie that really like confused me was that quasi black magic-y scene because it felt like it came out of nowhere. And I was like, this is like some random like zamindar lady. Why does she know this stuff? And she does something on the terrace and then Supriya just like collapses. And so
Yeah, that's right.
it was very weird. And there were no subtitles anyway. And so it was just this kind of like weird instrumental music. So I have no idea what was going on, but I was like, okay, I guess. But yeah, it was. And then I did watch the YouTube clip where Hugh Grant is talking about this movie, and he tells a story about how when he landed at the airport, a young boy who couldn't have been more than 11 showed up, and he's like, "I'm your driver," and Hugh Grant was like, "Excuse me, what?" And that was actually his driver. And of course, on day 3, he crashed the car. So that was like a funny. But I agree with Hugh Grant's assessment where he called it a silly little film.
Yeah.
And I also agree with your assessment, because I remember when you were talking about this film, I was a little confused because I was like, Beth is talking about this film with a lot of affection, but at the same time, when I asked her if it's a good film, she's
I was like,
not really saying it's a good film. So I was like, okay, what
it's
is going on?
it's a very strange thing that exists.
It is. And I actually agree with you completely, because I also was like, I enjoyed it and I thought it was like appealing in certain ways, but then on the other hand, I was just also kind of like, what is going on? So basically, strange little film is the way to describe it. Also, I agree with you, the starting was just too long. What was happening with
Yeah.
those friends of his? It was so unnecessary. The movie should have begun with him showing up at their haveli. That was the most interesting thing about it anyway.
I did
So
think it was interesting that one of his white, is she French, white women friends,
Gertie, or whatever her name was.
European, I guess. Well, one of them has a she's either married or at least has a son with a Black American jazz musician. And so like
Mhm.
there's no, I thought there was this and it's the 30s. So like there's this interesting kind of interracial relationship, not of the kind you expect, given what the setting is. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of there. They don't really do much with it, but I was curious if I ever read this book someday, I will be looking at that.
Yeah.
Or did
Yeah.
they make that up for this film? I don't know if it's in the book or not.
Mm. I know we talk about actresses' hair a lot because this seems to be a very consuming topic for us, and I would like to add Mr. Grant's hair to that list of like beautiful hair. So
I mean, Hugh Grant versus Dimple, like that's a that's a
yeah, those like hair options would be like a force of nature. It would be like Godzilla versus Kong.
maybe he can join the Yashraj spy universe as a, MI5 or MI6 or whatever, and then he'll have a movie where he liaises with her.
Yes. And she has like a Brahmastra up her hairpin. So just when you think that he's gonna win, she just like her hair's in a bun and there's like a chopstick in it and she just unfurls
I
it
don't
and
even
it's
need them
like
to be enemies. They can be on the same side, but I think they should meet.
yeah. Well, he's so grumpy that I think that they should be enemies. Also, speaking of Hugh Grant, have you seen the Graham Norton show where Emma Watson was on it? And she was talking about how when she and Hugh Grant did did they do Sense and Sensibility or did they do Pride and Prejudice? It was John Chu who was the director. But anyway, they did a movie together, and she talked about how Hugh Grant was
Oh, Emma
literally
Thompson. Emma
Emma
Thompson.
Thompson. Yes, sorry,
That Sense and
and
Sensibility. Oh, we love that movie.
well, she talked about
Um,
how he was grumpy from the beginning of the shoot till the end of it. And she was like, he was so difficult to work with. And Hugh Grant was literally sitting next to her. I'll send you the clip. And he's literally laughing. And he doesn't deny it. And he was like, no, I mean, I was grumpy and difficult and horrible to work with. I'm sorry.
I do sort of enjoy Hugh Grant's like I give no F's public persona that he seems to have now and how he is always calling out the horrible British tabloid journalists and stuff.
Right. He's very much hashtag grumpy camel.
Yep.
100%.
And even knowing I haven't paid particular attention to his career in a lot of ways, and especially not interviews and stuff, but like and yes, he brought some of the tabloid attention on himself.
Mhm.
He sure did. Like
Yeah.
I remember where I was when that story broke.
Right.
But being hounded by the British press is clearly horrible, horrible, and nobody
Yeah.
deserves that if they're not an elected figure or like a banker in charge of a bunch of things that affect a lot of
Hmm.
like entertainment celebrities do not deserve that. Uh,
Yeah.
so I feel for all of them and I appreciate any of them who will speak back out, especially if they take their sort of Oxbridgey education and like turn it
Yeah.
those big words. Shame them.
Right. Okay, amazing. I think that concludes this episode then. And we will see our viewers slash listeners next week. And thank you for watching. And then tell us what your favorite Mina Kumari movies are. We have seen The Light. We are no longer calling her Moaning Myrtle. Well, to be fair, Beth never did. I called her that. But I have now started calling her Merry Meena. So there's that. Tell us if you've seen Yahudi. We're very curious about this film. For some reason, I feel like it might be right up my alley. And tell us if you've seen Kohinoor and Miss Mary. And please watch the puppy song, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.